Hello, welcome. My name is Roger Sim. I'm head of the Department of Biosciences. BioTorsdag or BioThursday is a collaboration between the Department of Bioscience and Realfagsbiblioteket, the Library of Natural Sciences, ish, Science Library. Today we will welcome a researcher, Desalegn Chala, who is a multidisciplinary researcher. He started his academic career by studying botany in Ethiopia at Addis Ababa University. Then he extended his education with a second master's degree in GIS and Earth observation from University of Twente, Netherlands, before coming to Norway and UIO for a PhD that combined his interest both for botany and ecological modeling. He graduated in 2016 and he is currently working as a researcher at the Natural History Museum. Here at the University of Oslo, focusing on biodiversity digital twins. And this research he will share with us today. He will explain what a digital twin is and how this technology has the potential to revolutionize knowledge production and the decision-making processes in the future. Please welcome Dr. Desalegn Chala.
Okay, thank you very much for the very nice introduction. And as you have heard, my background is in biology, so my talk is not that technical and it should be easy to follow. As you can see, the title is Digital Twins for Ecology, Conservation, and Food Security. And my talk has two parts, and the first part is mainly introducing what a digital twin really is. And I will do that by drawing some examples from the digital twins which we are using in our day-to-day life. And then I will also touch on applications in the field of life science, including in forestry, in agriculture, and in biodiversity conservation, and so on. On the second part, I will talk about some exciting developments from Biodiversity Digital Twin project with focus on crop-wide relatives. What's the Biodiversity Digital Twin project and what are crop-wide relatives? That's the thing which I'm going to touch on in the second part of my talk, with focus on what crop-wide relatives are, why crop-wide relatives, why they are important for us, and how can we make use of digital twins in order to tap the novel genetic resources which are contained in crop-wide relatives and contribute to enhancing food security. So coming to the definition of digital twin, a digital twin is the counterpart of a physical object or a system in real time or near real time with certain degree of fidelity. We have an object, a physical object, or we have a physical process, and we have the digital counterpart of this physical object or this physical process, and the two are connected in a real time. It is a live digital replica of an object or a process, that means. So digital twins have two counterparties, and these are the physical counterpart and which we normally call the real space, and the physical counterpart, or which we normally call the virtual space. And these are connected in a real time. They are connected in real time, but they have some level of certainty, like when we are doing this, and the level of precision or certainty is what we normally call the fidelity or validity. How can we do that? So normally the digital and virtual space are connected by computational models. So for this, a good example which I can take, the one which we are using in our day-to-day life is the weather twin. Meteorologists are using data from different sources, including from satellite images, from weather stations, and from sensors, and they simulate this data in order to predict weather information in a real time. So this means the weather is a real space, and the information which we are obtaining is what normally calls the digital space. So in order to know like what the weather looks like in Africa or in America or wherever, like you don't have to be physically there. You can just check it from your web service or from your smartphone because that information is digitally available. This is like what the weather should look like here in Oslo, specifically at this place. And so what you can see on the web is a mirror image of what we see outside. So in order to know like what the weather looks like, you don't have to go and check it because you can access it from your web services. And this is normally what you call a digital twin. And these are connected in real time. So what's the purpose, for example, like if you just take this example of the weather twin, we can use this one, for example, in order to deliver accurate weather forecasts for daily planning. Second, it can enable us monitoring and tracking storms in real time. And it also has applications, for example, in agriculture. Based on this weather pattern, predicted weather patterns, we can optimize irrigation and the crop management based on the weather forecast. Again, we can also improve renewable energy productions like solar energy, wind energy, and so on. Above all, it also has a risk alert automation capabilities. We can automatically generate early warnings for hurricanes, for floods, for heavy snowfalls, for landslides, and so on. So this means digital twins are predictive. They are not only linking a physical object or a physical process in real time, but it can also learn the pattern so that we can predict what will happen in the future. So the other example which I can take is the smart home devices, some home devices which we are having in our homes. For example, like if you consider the fire alarm, which has got a sensors and which is detecting the amount of smoke in our rooms. And based on that, it can predict whether that can lead to fire or not. And it can also generate alerts to the fire department so that an action can be taken. So probably we can also use like healthcare and wearables like smart watches and so on. From those, like we can generate like different kind of data, for example, about heart rate, about sleep patterns, activity patterns, and so on. And based on that, one can monitor health matrices and predict potential health issues before they become serious, for example. So in general, a digital twin is dynamic. They move and they change with time, linking data from real object or process with the digital version. So it normally has the physical state or the physical object. It has data or observational data from that physical object. It will have the digital version. In addition to that, it also has control inputs. The control inputs are the actions or decisions that influence the physical state after getting information from the digital twin. And we can also evaluate how valid what we are predicting is, or how much the digital counterpart is mirror imaging the physical counterpart. So it has all these components. So now the question is, how can we translate this into life science? For example, like how can we make use of it in biodiversity conservation? How can we make use of it in environmental protections? And how can we make use of it in food security, elevation, and so on? So for this, a kind of digital twin, which I can take an example, is digital twins that are produced from satellite images. And there are so many satellites which are orbiting the Earth's surface, having different kind of properties, like having different kind of spatial resolutions. And as you can see here, some of them have got like about 30 centimeter resolutions, and the others have about like 50-meter resolutions, and so on and so on. And again, these satellites have also have got spectral, different type of spectral information. The spectral information is the wavelengths they are covering. And they also have different temporal resolutions. The temporal resolution is the revisiting time. Some of the satellites are revisiting every surface on the Earth almost in a day difference. That means we are getting image from every surface on the Earth each day, and others can revisiting time of about like 5 days and so on. And we have got a lot of satellite images, and from this satellite image, like we can produce a lot of stuff. From this, for example, like we can track land use changes in near real time. For example, if you see the C3, and they use Sentinel image, and they produce generate alerts for detect changes every other week. That means they are producing like an alert every other week for any surface on the Earth. And they have got a dashboard, and from that dashboard, one can subscribe so that one can get alerts via email, SMS, and so on and so on. So again, we can also use those images nowadays, like it's possible to monitor forest disturbances in near real time. These disturbances can be disturbances due to illegal logging. It can be because of forest fire, or it can be because of different anthropogenic impacts. So this has been already made possible, and so in order to know like the forest disturbance that's happening in Amazonia or in tropical Africa or even at our backyard, then one can easily digitally follow from these apps. Another app which is similar to the C3 is the Global Forest Watch, which is also doing a similar kind of stuff. It's developed by World Resource Institute in partner with Google, University of Maryland, and the UN. Again, this one is almost producing like alerts on forest fire on a daily basis. And one can get weekly or monthly deforestation alerts from any space on the Earth. So another example which I can take is a paper which is recently published in Ecological Informatics, which is about crane migration. Here they are using bird observation data from crowd-sourced platforms. They also use environmental data, and they also use historical data from GPS-tagged crane migration data from historical databases. And based on that, they have automated data processing using API pipeline for data retrieval and the processing. And they are providing real-time prediction on the most likely location of crane flocks during migration. They also provide a probability map showing areas with highest likelihood of crane sightings. And it also has a user interaction where one can stage data. So users can also contribute data to this platform so that the data will be automatically part of the model. So we are, in general, like from here, where are we going? We are generating really a lot of data. Probably the amount of data we have generated the last 5 to 10 years is more than the amount of data we have generated since the time of our evolution. We have a lot of satellite image data out there, and this data can be used in order to monitor, let's say, restoration sites. And we can produce digital twins from those in order to monitor protected areas. And we can monitor afforestation programs and so on. And above that, it also has got an application in agriculture. For example, we can drive different kind of indices from these satellite images so that we can monitor abiotic stresses like drought, nutrient deficiency, and so on, biotic stresses like pests, diseases, and so on. In addition to that, we can also produce alerts for the stakeholders or the farm owners so that they can make intervention in real time. Again, we are also producing hyperspectral data, data which have got high spectral resolution, which can enable us identifying plant species at species level and sometimes even at a population level from handheld sensors and from drones. And we also produce a lot of acoustic or sound data, and this sound data can enable us identify animals at species level, probably human beings at individual level as well. We are using face recognition, probably we can also use sound recognition because we are producing different kind of sound, and the sound of each of us can serve as a signature. It's unique to us, so using this data, we can do a lot of stuff. So again, we also produce a lot of genetic data, and we can create like a program which can automatically access this genetic data and run sequence analysis, and based on that detect mutations of bacteria of medical importance or virus of medical importance in a real time, so that it can generate alerts and we can make intervention in a real time. So coming to the second part, which is about the biodiversity digital twin project. This is a Horizon Hero project, which has about 8 work packages, and it has about more than 140 employees, and about 22 partners from 12 countries. So this project is developing digital twins around 7 use cases. And this includes like the biodiversity dynamics, the ecosystem services, one on invasive species, and one on crop-wide relatives. And that is the part which is handling by us at University of Oslo as a natural history museum. And so that's what I'm going to talk on. So what are crop-wide relatives? Normally, crop-wide relatives are wild plants closely related to cultivated crops. And then, but how related they are? So by broad definition, it refers to all taxa within the same genus as the crop. For example, if you consider coffee, we are mainly using coffee arabica and coffee robusta. So by this definition, any species which is belonging to the genus Coffea are the wild relatives of coffee arabica and coffee robusta. Not only that, it also includes wild population of the same species. For example, if you go to the native area in Ethiopia, we still have wild coffee in the forest, which is belonging to the same species of the coffee which we are using, and this can also be considered as the wild relatives. Crop-wide relatives are highly diverse. For example, if you consider the crop latrus or grass pea, it has about 180 species in the same genus, which means that it has about 180 wild species. And normally they account around 21% of the world flora, which means that if you randomly come across 10 species, 10 wild species, the chance for 2 of them to be wild relatives is highly likely. So it is really a huge resource. So here, what we are doing is, one, we are working on predictive characterization, which is for breeding purpose to increase crop resilience. And the second one, we are also working on their conservation. So one of the problems with our crops is genetic homogenization. Like we're selecting our crops like for age, and because of that, our crops are becoming genetically homogeneous over time. Here, for example, like this is the maize or the corn we had long time ago, but now we are more or less homogenizing it to this bigger one. And again, if you consider tomato at the time of domestication, it used to be that small, but now more or less we are having bigger tomatoes. That means we are genetically homogenizing them and we are losing genetic diversity over time. But the crop wild relatives have been in the wild since the time of their evolution, and they have got adaptive traits to drought, to warmer temperature, to colder temperature, to saline soil, to insect and the fungal pests, and so on. So the aim is, one, to bring back the genetic diversity lost through domestication bottleneck, and the second objective is in order to introduce novel genetic resources developed against the selection pressure. So these are the two aims of the digital twin we are building. So the aim is to facilitate the transfer of traits from crop wild relative to domesticated crops in order to increase the resilience of our crops. So for that, what we are doing is we are using data from different sources, occurrence data of crop wild relatives from online sources, and we are using climate information, and based on that, we are producing habitat suitability maps of the crops. Like here, you can see the habitat suitability. At the same time, we can also have like the environmental stresses, for example, soil acidity. So what we are doing is we are extracting information from environmental stresses at each of the suitable pixels. And based on that, we generate a response curve and identify where populations, stress-tolerant populations are growing. Literally, what we are interested in is populations which are living on the margin. For example, like if this is temperature, we are more interested in the population which are growing in the cold and in the warm areas, because that's what we are breeding for. Maybe if you consider like water stress, we are more interested in populations which are living in water deficient and populations which are living in waterlogged areas where oxygen is less available. So the digital twin which we are building has got a graphical user interface, and this graphical user interface has a drop-down menu of the crops and a drop-down menu of the wild relatives, and then different kind of environmental stresses, and then the tolerance range. So, for example, like precipitation, and then like the list of the crop wild relatives, and then finally the response curve. For example, like here, these are the wild relatives of latrus or grass pea. So here you can see the populations which are growing within this range of temperature, and then where you can find those crop wild relatives. So maybe just to show you this. So here we have different species of like grass pea. Like you can choose the species, like for example, like if I choose this one, then it displays like where the suitable habitat is located at a global scale. And probably like if we can try another species, this is mainly like a temperate adapted species. And again, here you can see for this species, wild relative where they are growing at a global scale. Then here also like we have the list of environmental stresses. It's a work progress, it's not yet finished. So here you can see precipitation, You can see temperature of like the wettest quarter. That's the temperature during the growing season. And also here you can see precipitation during the wettest season. And here in this menu you can see what range of environmental variables they are tolerating. Here we have the list of stresses and the list of like crop-wide relatives here. Like you can just choose, and you can check in which range these are growing. Actually, you can also select all the wild relatives, and then you can compare the range of tolerance. So it doesn't only make comparison at species level, it can also make comparison at the population level. So which population should I consider and so on. Yeah, it takes time. Yeah. Just to be back to my presentation, so actually then we have also like deployed the workflow into the destination Earth data lake in the way and as a fair digital object, which means that this digital object has all the data which we are using for model running, and the code which we have used for model running, the outputs of the models, and all the metadata, including who ran that model, based on the ORC ID. And so anyone can take this workflow from the destination Earth data lake, and they can use it for different kind of purposes. So generally, these models are automated to run on annual basis. That means it automatically runs once in a year. And this will enhance the number of model targets and the robustness of the models. I was showing you the wild relatives of grass pea, and normally now we have data for 18 species. And probably after a year, we may have enough data for 19 species or 20 species. So that means this it is automatically running once in a year. So the number of wild species from which we can screen the gene of interest is increasing over time, with time. Not only that, the more data we have, the robust the model is. And in addition to that, it creates also an opportunity to provide automated alerts for new data with predicted traits. So whenever we are running for additional species, and if it presents a better genetic trait, then we can also create an alert from that for interested stakeholders. So this is a project which is financed by Horizon Europe. And I'm not the only one who is working on this. We have a lot of participants. I'm more of a subject expert, but there are very excellent guys who are helping with coding and with creating these graphical user interfaces and in making the workflow fair and with supercomputing machines and so on. Yeah, with that, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. I have asked you, you have some room for some questions?
Please, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say so that everyone can hear also that we have visitors from high school today. It's from Skien and Søve. So it's very nice to have you here, and I guess you have a lot of questions. Yeah, digital twins and ecology and conservation and food security. Are there any questions?
Do the digital twin part of the analysis employ a kind of machine learning algorithm to, for example, whenever they predict a future outcome, and you get to that point in the future, and you take the physical measures, and you find out that these don't match? Is there like a machine learning algorithm that makes the model better for next time, now that it understands that this outcome that it predicted wasn't correct? But now that they have the new data, they could make a better model.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, probably like, I don't know, I will just go back in time. Like, yes, normally, like, actually these maps are produced using machine learning methods. Normally, we are using maximum entropy model. We are using boosted regression tree, which is like a machine learning approach. And we are using different kind of algorithms. And out of these algorithms, some of them are machine learning, typical machine learning algorithms. Actually, what we are doing is like we use several algorithms. And then using those algorithms, we produce several maps. And then finally, these maps will be assembled into one. So normally what we are doing is we use some of the data to run the model and the other portion of the data to validate the model. So because of that, yes, it will be evaluated. And normally, like by running several models, what we are doing is models which have got less validity will be automatically dropped. So we have a matrix to measure how robust the models are. So we are only considering the robust ones. And actually, if you see my last slide, actually that's also what I was talking about. Like with time, since this is automatically fetching data and calibrating the models again, so the robustness will increase. The more data we have, the more realistic what we are predicting will be. So yes, yeah.
How accurate are the data? The digital twins programs data? How accurate are they?
Sorry?
How accurate are the data?
Yes, I got it. Yeah. Yes, I mean like, yes, I mean, most of those things are coming with uncertainty. We know that very well. Yeah, so yes, especially like with what we are doing with distribution modeling, the issue is we are not only capturing like where the species is occurring, but we are also capturing where the species are potentially occurring. So because of dispersal barriers and because of so many reasons, like species are not occupying all the suitable areas. So because of that, like we are just, actually then accuracy is one of the issue. And then coming to like, not in biology, for example, like I was showing you like the weather prediction. How accurate is that? It's not that accurate, but every morning like we have to check the weather before we go out so that we can choose what to wear and so on and so on. So yes, it gives us something, but it's not that accurate. So that's the part which I was calling like the fidelity, like how much reliable that is. So we have a measure, but even that the measure which we are using also depends on the data. So the data which we are using is not an independent data, and because of that, like it comes also with bias, and accuracy is an issue, especially when it comes to biodiversity. But still, it will give us something, yeah.
Does the digital twins project have a grand goal? What's the goal at the end of this project?
Okay, normally, like we are actually then the digital twin is like it was initially developed in industry, and it was developed in other fields, not for biology. So currently, we are just experimenting whether we can manage to create a digital twin for biodiversity or not. So we are actually working on a prototype digital twin, not a digital twin. But now we are thinking of like launching so that it can exist somewhere. Especially, for example, I was showing the crop wire relatives, like if we can make it like available somewhere, then crop breeders can make use of it. Rather than just randomly trying something, they can rely on those ones. Not only that, like I was just showing where they are potentially growing, but we also have seed collections in the gene bank. So we know from where those seeds are coming, and based on that, you can also like rate which one to try first, which one to try second, which one to try third, and the stuff like that. So yes, so we are planning to. Actually, then here I was also like showing that it's not publicly available. Like our workflow is already deployed into the destination airs lake, and the destination airs lake is where they are building the digital twin of the airs. So these small digital twins will finally come together. They can talk to each other so that finally they can produce something. That's the ultimate goal.
So, and when you have these, the other picture of the lattice,
Yeah.
For instance, I guess it's needed a lot of work to, let's say, for instance, get up the genetic variation in the populations, and you need the taxonomists, and you need also, I was wondering, when you're thinking about security of food, is that the traditional, let's say, breeding of crossing different ecotypes or whatever, or are you thinking gene technology, or what is the progress of, or how do you think to do this actually?
Yes, actually then here also like we are just modeling a proxy.
Yeah.
So like, where was that? Yes, like for example here if you see, probably like I can slide this one to here, or here for example, like I'm just mapping the population which can tolerate a temperature of above 30, right?
Yeah.
So that means we think that they are heat stress tolerant. Yeah. So like if they don't have that kind of genetic material, they may not manage to grow in that environment. So we are more of like giving a proxy.
Telling this one. Yeah.
And actually we are not a breeder, so.
No, this will be potential.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the potential
Well,
resource. Yeah.
So it's very exciting that all the Europe of our horizon is here. I just have to sum up now, or not sum up, but we have to close up. And BioTorsdag is a cooperation between Science Library. My name is Kirsten Borsa Haraldsen, and Pernille Eidesen from the Laboratory of School Education in Biology, skolelaboratoriet for biologi på Institutt for biovitenskap, Department of Biosciences. And that means also that this is streamed and filmed by the crew behind here, Dag Bakker, and you can pick up this talk later on at the YouTube of Science Library. So, and from every talker that comes here, we make a nice, let's say, poster, and that is the gift. That is for you being here.
Wow.
And thank you so much for your talk.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you. I like this one.
Takk for i dag. Det Abels tårn i morgen. Nei, ok, neste fredag.